Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly podcast at Think Catalyst. My name is Ricardo Ferraris, and I'm here with my business partner, Vivek Kuchibotla. Today's podcast is going to be in English, and we're going to discuss a topic that is very much on many of the CMO minds that we've been talking to, and related to how to best choose a new advertising and media agency. Which is very much a common approach and a common issue as CMOs take on jobs and consider promoting their products. Vivek, some of your early thoughts on this and maybe some background.
Well, we switched out the language just to keep it interesting, to keep people paying attention. And I would say that the pitch process is currently, there's more and more pitches going on, but the process is not getting better. It's just getting worse. It's an ongoing headache for both parties. And everyone seems to think that there must be something better out there. And actually, I think we're gonna propose a really interesting alternative to the current headache process that we have right now.
We've noticed a lot of things happening around this. We've noticed that tenures at agencies, between agencies and advertisers have shortened. Forget about the days when there were long relationships when you and I started in this business, but now we've been reading that the average relationship is down to 3 years, which is terrible because it barely gives an opportunity for two organizations to get to know each other and really understand what the business issues are and how to tackle them together.
When I
Go
first
ahead.
started, when I first started in this business, I think I was 5 or 6 years into my career running P&G before I even was involved in a pitch, because they were so infrequent. You just had accounts and you ran accounts, and that was it. But things have radically changed. And now, as you said, the average relationship is down to 3 years. There's no definitive study that says that, but the ANA has some stuff that points to that. Scopa in Latin America has some stuff that points to that. So it seems fairly consistent. The number is 3 years. And not coincidentally, in my opinion, the average CMO tenure is also trending towards 3 years. And I think it's evident that when a CMO doesn't get results, they move him out very quickly, or they move her out very quickly. And when a CMO is not getting results, it's often because his agency is, for whatever reason, not delivering what was expected of them. So that there seems to be a correlation between average length of relationship and average CMO tenure. And it's not a good correlation. It's not a good number.
Much of it also driven, I would say, to the view of short-term results. But brands aren't built, on very short-term results necessarily. Few really are. If you look at the brands that have iconic ads, that have an iconic image, that are present in our lives for many years, that's the work of many years. They may have changed in some occasion, communication partners throughout, but they're much more consistent, and they're much more dedicated to working on making sure that relationship continues to deliver amazing results and wonderful work. So
I think the definition of long term has become when you can string sufficient 6 month periods together eventually you will get to the midterm and the long term. But the world we live in is a world where everything's measured in 6 and 12 month intervals.
Some of the other
Uh,
issues that we've seen in this process, which we believe is not really working well, is the fact that it's also very expensive to run pitches, and it's time consuming, and that affects the agency and the advertisers on a number of different dimensions. You want to comment on that a little bit, Vivek?
I see you blocked it out of your mind because you spent many years running pitches, and you just don't want to talk about it. But it's really expensive in time and resources for the agency. And as we move to more project work, there's more pitches. So we have anecdotal evidence that some agencies will spend 30 or 40% of their time working on new business, which means that their best talent is spending 30 to 40% of their time working on new business. And if the hit rate, let's say for argument's sake, is 30%, which you could say is a high hit rate, but let's say it's 30%, 70% of the efforts and time of this group of people is wasted. It's hugely expensive to spend your life pitching new business all the time, and that's the effect on the agency. That's what we like to call pitch hell. But then there's also the effect on the advertiser, that while he or she is distracted in choosing another agency, a process that takes a lot of time, their competitors are doing marketing, speaking to their consumers, and building their brand. So for an agency, it's time and money. And for an advertiser, it's time and resource distraction. That makes this whole process not optimal.
Imagine knowing you're a CMO and knowing that your agency is constantly involved in pitches and not spending time on your business.
Yeah,
that's awful, but that's also caused by the CMO. So
of course,
the whole it's a vicious cycle that is created, and well, there's a lot of other factors that come around with that as well, and other outcomes, but it's actually caused by the same advertiser who is looking to have strong partnerships with agencies. So
the very definition of a vicious circle.
yeah, I've been involved in many pitches, and I find that the process becomes even more flawed and often very difficult when you're asked to pitch with speculative creative. So here you are, you're an agency, you're talking to a client, and in a span of 3-4 weeks, you're supposed to present a campaign idea, a strategy, a campaign idea, possibly to resolve a bigger business issue. How realistic is that, Vivek? I mean, and what are the pros and cons of doing spec creative, in your opinion?
Well, I think there's no other profession that I know of that is asked to give away their work for free in order to be hired to do the work. I think in principle, it's just wrong. And although we don't like to talk about it, we do know of instances where work presented by one agency was taken by the advertiser and used without paying for the work to that agency. So I think there's something fundamentally unjust with asking for spec creative. It's very expensive for the agency, and I think that it's not, at the end of the day, the best way to measure if that is the right agency for you on an ongoing basis. They may hit it out of the park on one campaign, that doesn't mean that they'll do it on a regular basis. So I think we need to move away from spec creative. We need a different way of doing this.
Funnily enough, the winning agency never airs the
It never
campaign
does.
the work that they present. So that's an occurrence that happens quite often. I'm with you, especially on the fact of giving away work, thinking, and time that that is valuable, and you risk not getting paid for. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going to be important. One more point that I wanted to bring up, and that is, and I've seen it again, and I did it because that's was part of the way of doing things. But the show was a big part of romancing a client in a pitch, and we talked about some of the half truths in a couple of our earlier podcasts, but that actually comes out sooner or later, tarde o temprano, as they say in Spanish. It all comes out, and so the show can cloud often the real judgment and the real thinking that needs to be put as it relates to selecting an agency.
The dog and pony show, as I like to call it. But it's kind of ironic now that I'm thinking about it, because I've spent probably the last 20 years of my career training people to do better presentations. So I am actually I am helping to do better dog and pony shows on one side, and on the other side, I'm saying the dog and pony show is not the best way to choose the agency. So that's
look,
life can be funny sometimes.
It's going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to happen, and I think that's part of it. The advice that we'll really now go into and give advertisers and suggest is just a way to go and see more thoroughly and how to evaluate an agency as you consider a selection. So let's go into that for a second. And we have a number of things that we want to talk about. There's 9 on our list. Let's cover the first 3 in this first part, and we'll cover the other 6 in the second part. But because we want to dedicate the right time to discussing this and exchanging a bit of our experiences and give food for thought to CMOs about the agency pitch process. So let's go with the first one, Vivek, and that is, how do we start? How do we start a pitch process, and where does this come from, and how do we define how to go about selecting an agency? Why don't you give us a few thoughts on that?
Well, we're looking for a better, faster, cheaper way of finding an agency. My apologies to Martin Sorrell, who uses that phrase often, although I used it first, but he's more famous than I am, so what the hell? It's his phrase. But I think the first step in this new process is to define actually what you need. And to define what you need, we're calling it a partner profile. To be able to define what you need, the first thing you have to clarify is, what are you planning to do? What is your program? What are the events, the projects, the initiatives that you have in your marketing calendar? And once you figure out what exactly you're going to be doing on your account, on your brand for 1 year, then you can say, you know what, I need X specialty, I need Y capability, and I need Z something else. So for example, just to give you an idea, if the pillar of growth in your company for the next year is going to be e-commerce, and we just recently spoke to a an advertiser that had that as one of the pillars. Well, obviously, you're going to require an agency with e-commerce expertise. But let's say additionally that another of the pillars that you have is going to be, I don't know, just for argument's sake, you still do traditional advertising on TV, right? So in this case, you need an agency that can do the traditional stuff, the big TV commercial, the Super Bowl commercial, the flashy stuff, and you need specialized knowledge in e-commerce. Not all agencies combine these things. So now you've understood exactly what you need, and you know exactly what your ideal agency should offer you. So you have a profile of your partner, a potential profile of your partner. And that would be the first step. Know what you need, know what you're looking for, and then you go out in the market, and we go to step number 2, which
that would probably also precede one other question as to why you want to choose another agency. And that would, you know, you need to really understand what it is as it relates to the what. You really want to ask yourself the question, you know, why am I considering this, and what has worked in the past and what has not worked in the past that we want to eventually apply to the new relationship as well. So
what is currently not being delivered by my
Right.
existing agency, that's going
Right.
to help clarify your needs moving forward.
Right.
So again, going back to my original point, if your current agency is not up to speed in e-commerce and you need e-commerce, obviously looking forward, you need an agency that can do e-commerce at a high level.
Going on to point number 2, I've heard a lot of CMOs saying, "Oh, well, I know agencies, and you know, I can talk to my buddies and my friends and people I know, and you know, I'm on a WhatsApp group with a bunch of CMOs, and I'll ask them."
But
That's a flawed approach, for a number of reasons, and you and I, let's just talk about that, because the market to begin with has evolved significantly, and there are now many more offerings in the market. A lot of agencies that are now specialized, a lot of agencies that are doing different work. You know, it's the ads, but it's social platforms, it's you know, digital, it's, you know, and it goes back to your question earlier, is it what it is that you're looking for? So when we're looking out in the market now, so can we trust our friends? Can we trust our other CMO colleagues? Can we trust the agencies that we know to be the right group to invite to a pitch, to have to pitch our business?
there's very few people on the client side who actually have the depth of knowledge of the industry to make that sort of call, who know all the different specialties, all the different players, all the different conflict structures that exist, all about the movement of people. This is an industry with a lot of movement. So you might know someone who is a great fit in agency A, but he's moved to agency B and he's a very bad fit. And although you have a good impression of him, that impression is based on a particular set of circumstances. It might not mean that he's doing well wherever he is right now. So there's a lot of variables. And the other thing you got to take into account when you're thinking in terms of references is you can have 2 clients with one agency. One client loves the agency, the other client's not doing well with the agency. It's the same agency. You
Yeah.
get 2 different references
Right.
of the same agency.
Right.
So it's really risky for the client to actually think that they have sufficient knowledge of the industry to actually weed through the hundreds, literally, of agencies that exist nowadays and come up with the, let's say, a short list of 10 agencies that can actually do what they need done. And oh, by the way, these advertisers also have to do their job, and they got to do marketing, and so it's not like they can sort of leave all of that aside and dedicate themselves 100% to searching the market to find the agencies that could work for them. So it's a very tricky proposition. Parsing the market is not easy, and you need to rely on people who really know what's going on, and are abreast of all the changes in the market.
Don't get me wrong. I think references are important. And I think, hearing from other people is not a bad thing, but it should not be the driver in terms of the decision.
Absolutely not.
Who to invite. Let me take a moment to comment about why, and by the way, this is the business that you and I are in, but
This is
why,
the life we chose.
yeah,
A mafia phrase.
but why strongly consider a search consultant that can help CMOs? And there's a number of reasons there, but certainly search consultants have mapped the market and know who the players are, as you were mentioning earlier, in terms of capabilities and competencies. They have processes that are thorough end to end as it relates, starting with a brief scope of work, how to set up the right organization and team for a client, really understanding what needs to be possibly resolved in terms of the business. Agencies take pitches a lot more seriously when a consultant is involved. They know that there's going to be some real think and proper processes applied to the pitch that often are not applied when an advertiser is running a pitch on their own. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that as well, Vivek. I'm sure you do. And before we go on to point number 3, I would add one more thing. I guess there's good and bad agencies in the market, but that's not what we look for. What we really look for is what is the right agency to fit with the right advertisers at the right price point as well, too, because we want to make sure that there's fair compensation. But not all agencies are for all advertisers, and not all agencies have skill sets to do everything. Aside from the fact that they promise it, but
of course. But I think that's the basic insight here. Not everyone is for everyone else. You got to find the right match. I think just to recap. So the first step is to figure out what exactly you need. Write it down in a document. And then the second step that we're talking about is to, once you have this document, your requirements brief, to call it in some fashion, then with the help of someone who knows the market, you venture into the market and you make a short list, let's say for argument's sake, of 10 agencies that have exactly what you're looking for. And then the task becomes, okay, out of these 10 agencies, which is the one for me, which is the right one for me, which moves us then to point number 3.
Right. So how do we select agencies, Vivek? What are the steps we should consider?
Let me talk about point number 3 a little bit, because I am a big believer in this. And once you have your short list of 10 agencies, you want to take a look at the client list of every one of those agencies. why do you want to do this? Because the truth of the matter is that if you're a small client at a large agency, even though they'll promise you that they'll give you exactly the same service that they give their biggest clients, this is not true. It's not going to happen. They'll have the best intention, but at the end of the day, the big clients get the bulk of the attention. And that's not only true in advertising, that's true in banking. That's true when you're flying on an airplane and you're sitting way at the back and you're asking yourself why you don't get great food and free champagne. Well, the reason is simple, because you're not as important to the airline as the first class traveler, right? So the point here is, look at the list of clients, and you absolutely do not want to be the small client at the agency. So if you're going to be a small client, whittle out that agency, remove it from the short list. You want to be either a mid-sized client or an important client. Why? Because you're going to get the best service and you're going to get the best efforts from that from that agency. It's just a simple fact of life. People don't take it into account, but they should. You ran agencies. Tell me it's not true.
It's true. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And there's an emergence of other agencies, mid, smaller size boutiques, dedicated to address this issue, because a lot of clients are not getting the service that they need from their current agency. So it's a big point, and again, finding the right match is a fine process, which we'll talk about in the next couple of points and in our next podcast, as we end this one as part one. Such an interesting conversation. I know we're going to have everyone hanging and wanting to see part two and hear part two, because then we'll really talk about what the real things that have to come together and how the magic comes together. Because if you do match agency and advertisers well, and there's a lot of terrific relationships out there, great work comes out of that too. And that's what makes this business, so interesting and so much fun to work at, and be involved in. So, any parting thoughts, Vivek, before we finish part one?
No, I was just laughing because we're going to do the cliffhanger thing. We're going to leave them hanging. Dun, 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 dun.
Right.
Tune into the next podcast to hear about what the remaining 6 points.
Who shot JR? This is how old you and I are. So
who shot JR? I'll go a step further. I'll go a step further. To who shot JR? I'll say, we'll see you at the same bat time on the same bat channel.
Okay. Great to be with you, Vivek. I know that this is a topic that has a lot of CMOs interested. And I hope you found it interesting, at least in this first part. See you next week in part two, and we will, we'll broaden it and give you a lot of insight there. Yeah, one more thought there.
Please leave us your comments. Please like and share, and help us expand the reach of this podcast.
Subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe to our channel. There we go.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. And for those in the States, Labor Day Monday, and enjoy. Take care. Bye.
Bye.